Westfield.
It might surprise you to hear, but The Elder Scrolls had a shaky start on console. These days we are well beyond hilarious japes and firmly into the territory of bland reflexive memes. Oh ho ho ha ha, Skyrim is on everything, we utter as our unending punchline. Oblivion remastered, more like Oblivion resold again on console, waka waka, we add without a hint of actual sense or comedy to things. But in 2002, 23 years ago as I record this, oh well, time to die, it was a very different story. Bethesda had been kicking around just over 15 years, and in that time had put out a handful of forgettable titles on console formats. A hockey game here, something or other on Atari Jaguar, bowling. But the developer was firmly at home on the PC in the most part, especially when it came to the studio's still growing original RPG series, The Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls Arena was the first shot for the franchise, and understandably didn't bother dipping its toes into console formats. Spin-offs Battlespire and Redguard didn't make the leap either, which was no great loss for anyone. The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall might have been a good point to bring the joys of the free-roaming RPG to non-PC players in 1996, but could the PlayStation, Saturn or N64 have done it justice? I'll go with no. You probably could have got something running on them, but it would have been a nightmare of interface versus player, the likes of which we haven't seen since, well, a dozen other PC to console ports that probably should never have happened. So when the news flopped out that The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind would be coming to Microsoft's then still upcoming Xbox, and that this was no half-baked move to hastily shunt a very PC-focused RPG of ridiculous depth and complexity onto a giant ugly box everyone thought you would only use to play Halo, it was a surprise. And fair to say, expectations can't have been particularly high because of the always true notion that consoles see a power deficit in comparison to the PCs of the day, and because, well, The Elder Scrolls was a popular series by the late 90s, but it was popular to about the million or so people who bought Daggerfall and a smaller bunch of folks without PCs who'd been sat drooling at magazine screenshots of that game. I was part of that second bunch, by the way. But also because the majority of the built-in console gaming audience didn't know what to expect from a game like Morrowind. From this new form of open-world RPG, the likes of which hadn't made its way to console much at all. I shall return to this point. Still, relatively speaking, The Elder Scrolls wasn't big, and news of the third main entry to the series coming to Xbox, a launch title, or at least in the launch window for Microsoft's console, while raising a few eyebrows, didn't exactly move the needle in any real way. The unforgettably forgettable Jay Allard said on the Xbox port's announcement, "We believe this will be the only RPG of its kind on any future generation video game systems." For once, the hype bollockry wasn't wrong. Meanwhile, Todd Howard, in 2002 still dreaming of a world where he could afford such a sexy leather jacket, said these words, or had them typed up on his behalf as they were in a press release. "We've been working with Microsoft since we first heard about Xbox. They've done a great job on Xbox. It's the fastest system we've seen and it's easy to develop for. Morrowind is going to be something really unique and we finally have a system that can do it justice." Hype. Quiet, surprisingly restrained hype. It might have been the first Elder Scrolls on console, but some trends began immediately. For example, Morrowind was delayed on PC, and Morrowind was delayed on Xbox. It released on PC in May of 2002, and a few months later in June for Billy G's obnoxiously big box of mirth in the US. We had to wait until November 2002 in Europe, annoyingly. Reviews were high on score and heavy on praise, showering the game with awards on both PC and Xbox. Except for when they weren't. And this is the point I said I'd return to earlier. A lot of the Xbox reviews were clearly shocked at the freedom they saw in the game. That's to be expected. But a fair few of them didn't actually like Morrowind as much as you'd think, because it wasn't like console RPGs that had come before it. Now, the likes of GameSpy rated the Xbox port highly, saying, "Despite a few minor issues, Morrowind manages to shine on the Xbox. It is the first game to truly bring a wide-open role-playing experience to the console. Gamers who have grown up on the Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior games will be amazed at the sheer level of freedom and the size of the living world available for exploration in Morrowind." Edge magazine in the UK maintained its typical fun-hating stance it was particularly well known for in the early noughties, throwing a 6 out of 10 at Morrowind's PC version, saying, "Ultimately, Morrowind proves less satisfying than the sum of its parts." Still in the UK, the official Xbox magazine awarded a good not great 7.6 out of 10 to the game, with the reviewer summing the experience up thusly. "By turns it's wondrous, boring and unconventional, a unique and extraordinary but slow-paced experience." And hopping over the pond, the official US Xbox magazine knobbed the number up to 8.1 out of 10 and accompanied the numbers with a review I couldn't find anything interesting to quote. Except for one small section in the summary where the reviewer asked, "Is this the right type of RPG for a console?" But it was saved for, fittingly, an old colleague of mine to hit the nail on the head with their opinion of Morrowind Xbox, if by hit the nail on the head you mean miss every single nail completely and manage to thwack yourself in the knackers with the hammer. XBM handed out a 7 out of 10 to Morrowind box, but the review's second opinion said this: "Too much time. That's what Morrowind will take from you. Some of this is well spent, stealing and robbing people being two excellent reasons to play this game. The rest, however, is tired, tedious, and just plain hard work. Morrowind is an RPG on an impressive scale, but fails to really engage you with interesting storylines, characters, and a thread that should make you come back for more. Overall, it's fair to say that Morrowind is a fat, obese, overblown affair. Only the real RPG heads need apply. Final Fantasy, this isn't." Disagree? Sure, it's easy to. But it's not far off what a fair few folks felt towards Morrowind's Xbox runout in 2002. This was the console of Halo and Project Gotham Racing, and consoles were indeed the playground of your Final Fantasies and Phantasy Stars. Console gaming wasn't about trudging brownly through a brown world, swinging your sword at nothing for 20 minutes before you could inflict 4 hit points of damage on a rat. Those fair few folks were wrong, obviously. Hindsight's a son of a bitch and all that. Okay, so I say wrong, but I do agree with some of the notions and opinions. Morrowind was cut back from the PC port visually. It did chug and struggle at times to keep up with the world Bethesda had slapped onto that DVD and onto part of your console's hard drive. The world of Vardenfell was extremely brown. Swinging at nothing when you should be hitting something just felt ridiculous. But Morrowind was an ambitious and refined experience on PC. On Xbox, it was revelatory. No game of this type had been given a push of such magnitude before outside of PC. No console experience was like what Morrowind brought to Microsoft's suitcase-sized box full of circuits. Nothing offered the freedom to explore, to exist, to simply drift or levitate through the world like Morrowind did. And soon enough, the flywheel of interest and excitement started spinning. Morrowind got plaudits from the press, it picked up awards, and word of mouth spread the good chat. The port included practically everything from the PC original, a supremely impressive feat even to this day considering the depth and breadth of what was in the game. It was around early 2003 I watched my housemate playing the game on PC and just had a sudden jolt of, oh god, I can actually play this on my Xbox right now. It was like nothing else I'd personally seen before, and it opened up a whole new world of complete RPG-shaped joy in my life. Joy I still feel to this day with every Elder Scrolls. In fact, all of this footage was captured using a few of the original saves I still have on my original Xbox with my original copy of Morrowind Game of the Year Edition and not my original copy of Vanilla Morrowind, which is what I had originally. Like I was getting at before though, it's impossible to claim Morrowind was a perfect first step for Bethesda's console RPG incursion. It worked, just about, but it always felt like a bit too much for the Xbox. Note all the little bits of random loading popping up mid-game that I don't have the patience to go through and edit out for one. Yes, Morrowind was still absolutely a PC game transposed to another form of play rather than something that truly felt at home on console. But it was a first step, and it paved the way for everything that followed. 2006's Oblivion, where things went a lot more consolified. Skyrim in its 231 different versions. The Elder Scrolls Online, which, even though it has an entire Morrowind expansion, I still won't bother playing because it's an MMO. And the endless memes and desperate pleading around the Elder Scrolls 6, which has console players just as excited as their PC-owning counterparts, a situation I found to be absent, if not completely impossible, back when Morrowind's Xbox port was announced in 2001. Clunky, chugging, draw distance measured in nanomillimeters, there's every good reason why Morrowind could, maybe even should, have gone down in history as yet another port from PC to console that lost its way. Bethesda made the Xbox version, as in forced it to, crash while you were playing the game so it would restart and so clear out the console's memory, allowing it to run that bit longer without fully dying on you. That's the sort of trickery that had to be employed to get Morrowind working on console, and it's exactly the sort of chicanery that you would think would lead to the game being little more than an experiment consigned to the curio pile for future reference. Instead, Morrowind sold shed-loads on Xbox. Just shy of 1.5 million bought it for their console. Bethesda carved its own niche, created a new style of game for console players, proved there was room for other RPGs in the space, and ultimately took over a surprisingly high percentage of the overall global playing hours put in by owners of Xboxes, PlayStations, and Switches over the years. Despite the obvious support from Microsoft, despite the quality of the game, rough edges and all, and the mostly high review scores, despite the simmering hype building to froth-caked word of mouth, it was still a decidedly brave thing for Bethesda to do, to cram the game in there, to only compromise where absolutely necessary, to assume console players could handle the overwhelming nature of such a free and open game. It was risky, and it was right. And it set the stage for huge future successes and hundreds of hours of fun for me personally over the years that followed. Morrowind on Xbox was a profound, almost inexplicable success, and its effects are still clearly felt now 23 years later. I still don't really know what's going on in the story, mind. Thanks for watching. You should join my Patreon so I don't call you a fetcher or something. Like these people did, who I like and don't call fetchers, even if they might be fetchers. I don't know. Are any of you fetchers? Let me know. I'm off to tame my local silt strider. Bye!